Hello, everybody. This is Curtis Clow, and this is another episode of our companion podcast, Ink to Table. I'm here with.
As always, Caleb Palmquist, the real host of the podcast, and we have an excellent guest today. As featured on Ink to Table this month is Ro Lamb. Hi, Ro.
What's going on? What's going on? Appreciate y'all for having me.
Of course,
So,
man. Scarlet Ranger looks great. If you want to give a little background on like what Scarlet Ranger is and a little pitch to it, that's your current live Kickstarter for I think the third issue, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Scarlet Ranger is a superhero comic book series about a young man who inherits the title of Scarlet Ranger from his grandfather. And the story picks up when his grandfather's greatest enemy breaks out of prison. And so we follow this young man as he's learning how to protect his family, protect his city, but ultimately protect the legacy that his grandfather left for him. So, as you said, this is the third issue that's on Kickstarter right now. So, I'm super excited to continue this story.
Yeah, the comic's great, man. I've only read issue one, but I really loved it. It just has like the vibes of that teen superhero in high school and stuff. How many issues you have planned for the series?
So right now I know I want to do it'll be 4 issues for this first arc. And I know I want to do at least one more 4 issue arc. And so right now I have it going to about 8 issues. So we'll see. I try to take it one bite at a time, you know what I mean?
Yeah, when we did the like interview questions for the Ink to Table magazine, I was saying how I was like surprised that you chose the superhero genre because it's such a I don't know what the word is, but it's such a populated genre in comics, especially with like the big two and stuff. And you said your answer was interesting, like you were kind of just naive and just didn't really know before starting it. Like, how has that process been? Do you think it's been harder to find an audience like trying to do the superhero route on Kickstarter? Do you think it's like worked against you?
Um, I actually don't think it's worked against me. I think, being at cons and talking to people and pitching the book, I think it's worked really well. People will come to the table and they'll say, "Oh, this reminds me of, Miles Morales," or "This reminds me of," and they'll name whatever. And I'm like, "Cool," but I think that's why, like, in my pitch, I try not to, somebody try to give me advice and they say, "Hey, I think you should, throw in the Spider-Man angle or throw in the," and I'm like, to me, it's more than a superhero story. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so when I try not to compare it in my pitch. And then, if somebody says, "Oh, well, this reminds me of that," I'll just say, "Cool." You know what I'm saying? Maybe you'll like this too.
Yeah, no, that's always easy when you're at a con, and when they make their comparison, you just gotta like agree to it, and that's just easy
Right,
sales
right,
there. But I
right,
kind of I hate comparing my comics to other things, and then Caleb's makes fun of me because I say that Beastlands is like Pokemon, and he's like, it's not like Pokemon at all. I'm like, I know, it's just like something that everybody knows. Like I
right,
hate
well,
doing that whole comparison thing.
right.
when Curtis and I are at a con together, I always pitch his book as Game of Thrones with Digimon. But
I mean, my original like comparison for it was Game of Thrones meets Pokemon, so it's not far
uh,
off.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
did
yeah.
a podcast at LA Comic Con where we pretended to be each other and just kind of shit on each other's books. That was fun.
Perfect, perfect.
Have
um,
you? How many cons have you done? Like, are you on the con circuit grinding out there?
I wouldn't say I'm grinding. I did. So last year was my first year of really like getting into cons and like really pushing the book. So I did ATL Comic Con or ATL Comic Convention. I did Heroes Con. I actually had a chance to do Dragon Con as well. So last year I did about 4 cons. I did a couple of mini cons as well. And this year I probably have 2 or 3 on the books that I'll do this year. But that is something that I would like to turn up a little bit more, just because I love being able to just talk to people and share the story, even if they don't buy anything. I like to, just share. You know what I'm saying, and talk to people. So.
how was your experience of Heroes Con? I did that one in 2019, and it still is one of my favorite memories of con.
Yeah, yeah. Heroes Con is lovely. So I have a couple of friends who they live in North Carolina. It's actually 3 of them. So it feels like a family reunion every time I get to go to Heroes Con. Actually, my mom, my brother, my 2 brothers, and my sister, they live in Charlotte. So when I go to
Okay,
North Carolina, it's like my almost like my second home. So it's like family reunion.
right on.
It's awesome. Yeah, I think cons are important, especially when you're on the come up, just meeting people, making connections. That's how me and Caleb first met. I think at Rose City Comic Con, probably
Hmm.
2019 as well.
Right.
Um, they're exhausting, and like some of them can maybe not seem like they're worth the time. It's something that we've talked about a lot,
Yeah.
like where they come into play. But I think they're worth it, especially when you're on those early years of the grind.
Right. Especially if you find the right ones, like maybe not doing every one, but you find those right ones where you can, like last year when I did Heroes, I had people coming to my table and saying, "Hey, I bought issue one last year. Can I get issue two?" Right. And so those relationships that you sort of
Oh yeah.
build, and then people know you, and you building those relationships. To me, that's the cool part of the cons as well.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
for
especially
sure.
because comics are such an isolated thing that you're just like sitting at home by yourself. So like to get out there, it can be reinvigorating. And then every once in a while, you have the cons. I did one in SoCal where I made like one sale on a Sunday, and then by 3 p.m. I just like left there. That makes you just rethink your whole life by that point. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you'll learn like which ones are worth your time and which ones aren't.
For sure.
Yep. Yep.
So this is like your first full comic series, right? I remember we met from like years ago. I feel like you DM'd me like one of your comics you were working on, and it was like, you get a lot of DMs here and there, but this I took my time and I read it, and it was like actually solid, and I was like, okay, he's out here doing his thing, he's making some comics. Like, this is your first attempt at like making a full comic series, though.
Absolutely. So when I first started writing comics, one of the things that I thought was like, I need to start small. And so I did like a bunch of like short, like 6 pagers, 4 pagers. And then I did a 10 pager that I really liked. And so I was like, let me find an artist. I think that's the one that I sent you. And so I was like, okay, cool. I think I got a handle for the medium now. And that's when I was like, all right, cool. Let's do Scarlet Ranger. My first, 20 pager, my full length. And so, yeah, this was my first full length, I guess you could call it.
That's smart. I mean, that's probably something I should have did. I kind of learned as I started like a big series, and then just feel like I got better from series to series.
Right.
Like starting out with like 6 pagers, 10 pagers. That's probably like a really good way to get your feet wet. You write like novels, poems. Like, what made you want to come to comics and like start to learn this other medium?
Yeah, for me, it just felt really accessible. I think, when you write, so like I stopped and started a couple of novels, and it just takes a long time to write long form prose.
Yeah.
And then when it came to like writing screenplays, I really didn't have access to, the screenplay software, and I really didn't know where to go with that. But with comic books, it just felt like, I could just open up Google Docs or Microsoft Word and just go and figure it out. And I think a large part too why I started with the short form comics is because, financially, right? I could pay, $150 a page, and it's not thousands of dollars. It's just, it's $500, it's, $600, whatever.
Right.
So it just felt like it was accessible for me to step into that medium. And I just fell in love with the form, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the downside of comics is the cost. Like, as a writer, you're kind of in charge of paying for lettering, design, art, everything. Compared to like a novel where you can just, it's free to make if you can make it. But then I guess like the cost to get into novel writing, anybody can do it. So there's just so much crap out there, and not all of it's good. So,
Right.
So speaking of paying artists, you've had to switch artists on Scarlet Ranger. Certainly I don't want you to dish on anything negative, but how has the process of finding a new artist and finding the right fit to take over the project, how has that been?
It's actually been surprisingly easy. I think so the first 10 pager that I did, after we did the 10 pager, his name is Koi Carrion. He's out of the Philippines. So after we did that, I said, hey, man, I have this idea for a comic. It's a full length. It's 4 issues, completely. And I would love to have you rock with me on it. And he was like, cool. And so we already had a little bit of rapport from doing, the 10 pager. So it was like, cool. We just jumped right in to the first issue. And then when it was time to do the second issue, he just got busy with something else. And, I was like, I'm going to just keep it pushing. And so I kept it pushing. I found, how did I meet Kayla? I met Kayla just randomly on Facebook. I think I might have DM'd her or something. And And she was like, I've been waiting for you. She was like, I wanted to work on this. I've been waiting for you to ask me, and here you are. And I'm like, that's crazy. And so she ended up having, some health issues. So I had to find somebody else to finish the last 8 pages of book 2. And I just happened to see Ricardo Ketchy's work on another Kickstarter. And I just emailed him, just cold emailed him and said, hey, I got 8 pages left on this book. I'm just looking for somebody to help me knock it out. Are you available? And he said, I would love to. So for me, I know the horror stories. It's hard to find an artist. Like I know those horror stories, but this has just been just a smooth process for me. And I really I don't know how to explain it, but it's been pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I feel like every creator, every comic writer goes through that where like, you're for my first series, I'm on like my third artist as well for the Wild Cosmos, which still hasn't finished, but it's like, you when you don't have that history of like having a bunch of stuff done, it's harder for an artist to stick with you. Caleb's had to go through the same thing. Like we've had to fire people or like find other artists in the middle of series. It sucks because like you want the art to look consistent, but I feel like you've done a great job at like finding good replacements where the art still looks great. It's not like any like crazy differences or anything.
And that's really on the artist. I brought them in, and each one of the artists who have replaced the other artists, they've intentionally said, okay, cool. I didn't even have to tell them. They just said, cool, we're gonna match the color palette, or I'm gonna try this style. I usually would do it like this, but I'm gonna try it like this because of this how your other book looks, And so I just really appreciate, that's one of the things that I tell, newer writers is like, I mean, I'm a new writer too, but I tell other writers is like, look, lean on your artist. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to control everything. Like if you get somebody who knows what they're doing and cares about the work, they'll bring the best, you know what I'm saying? And you can sort of trust that and lean on that.
Right. Is that what you learned, like from switching up from other mediums to like when you were, how you said you were writing those like 6 pagers in those shorter form? Like what were the main things you learned when it came to like scripting stories for artists and stuff and like having that collaborative aspect?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, coming out of prose, you spend a lot of time describing everything, and you got, you want to get the colors right. You want everything to be in the reader's mind, right? And I think you want the same thing in comic books, but I feel like sometimes less is more in comic books, right? Where I just really need to give you the feel. And, one of the things when I write my scripts, I always put like a little letter at the beginning, and I say, hey, you're as much of a storyteller as I am, right? And so everything you see here is, for the most part, a suggestion. If you say there's a better way to do this, that's the way we're going to do it. And if I feel strongly about it, we can talk about it. But for the most part, whatever you say goes, right? And so, I try not to be too detailed in my descriptions unless I really feel like I really need this here. But other than that, I want the artist to bring their imagination and to bring their storytelling abilities to the table as well, so that it's not just my story anymore. Now it's us telling this story together, and I put some of myself in there, and you put some of yourself in there, and then we got a collaborative, piece of work. So
exactly, yeah, that's the beautiful thing about comics. Do you like go back to those other mediums still, or are you kind of like invested fully into comics now?
Yeah, so I'm working on a novel right now. I actually got it edited last year, so I'm doing some rewrites on my first fantasy novel. I'm working on a couple of screenplays. I'm always writing poetry and short stories. For me, it's a creative exercise, right? Of being able to just do these different mediums, right? If I'm working on a comic book script, let's say I get stuck, right? I'll move to a short story that I'm working on, right? And then, okay, cool, let me try some poetry. You know what I'm saying? It just gives me space to just sort of play and dabble in different mediums. And then I can take some of those same mediums, like I could take poetry and that might inspire something for a comic book, or some I'm working on a comic might inspire something for a screenplay. So they all sort of work hand in hand, you know what I'm saying? I try to juggle all of them.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much like exclusively in comics, so I've never thought about that. Like if you get stuck, I mean, everybody runs through some writer's block and stuff to like be
Yeah,
able
for
to
sure.
then kind of stretch it out in like a different medium. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
you gotta shake it up sometimes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. How's your experience on Kickstarter been? Me and Caleb have been on the platform for many years, so it's like we've seen it change. And I your first issue was what, a couple years ago, 2021 or so.
Yep,
Like
2021.
how being fairly new to Kickstarter, how has it been for you in like trying to grow your audience and community?
Yeah, Kickstarter. has been, I mean, it's been great to me. You know, I think my first Kickstarter, I did, I probably started promoting like 6 months before we launched. And that Kickstarter, I probably had like 200, I think 247 backers. We did like $6,700. So I'm like, oh, like I could do this. I could do this. So my next campaign, I did not prepare as well as I did for my first campaign. And I did like, I think we had like 145 backers, maybe like $3,700, $3,400. And I felt like a complete failure. I mean, we hit our goal, we got everything we needed, but I was like, I'm supposed to be in the
No, you always
200.
have that internal goal. Like even, I mean,
Right.
everybody, people who aren't as familiar with Kickstarter or Kickstarter creators, you have that goal that people see, but then you always have that internal goal and like your own aspirations on what you want to hit. So like people be like, what you bummed out about, man? You just hit your goal, but it's like, man, sometimes
Right,
you
right.
didn't hit
But
quite
I
what you
mean,
needed.
yeah, but I was just like, man, like I just didn't know like what did I do wrong? I was like, and I think I talked to Caleb about this. I was like, Caleb, like we got on a video call. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And he gave me some, he was trying to, talk me through it and gave me some pointers. And I just felt so like just down. But I think going into this campaign, I was just like, I'm not going to put so much pressure on myself like I did on that second campaign. As long as we hit the goal, we get what we need. All I can do is control what I can control, and the rest gonna take care of itself. And so I'm feeling pretty good about this campaign. We're not doing numbers like that first campaign, but we doing pretty well. And
I'm
so
not doing numbers like it was back then in 2021 either. So I think it's a lot of it's like the state of the world and the state of Kickstarter that's like out of your control. What did
yeah,
you? I mean, Caleb's over here killing it better than
right, right,
ever.
right.
So
We don't count him. We
you
don't
know,
count Caleb.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
What?
but I'm super grateful for Kickstarter though. It gave me opportunity to, take this idea that I had and just give it to the people and say, hey, y'all want this?
Yeah,
And
no, we live in a great time where we have something like crowdfunding where you can just make anything and not have to use credit cards and stuff. So
I'm listening to a book right now called Scarcity Brain, and it's all about like the like psychology of addiction and
mhm,
like dopamine and all this stuff. And in a lot of ways, Kickstarter is like that, right? Like we go in and we roll the dice, and sometimes it's down. I mean, I've had a number of campaigns in the last couple of years that really didn't hit anywhere near what I thought they would or what I had previous campaigns had done, and we can really like get ourselves screwed up, like just expecting certain things and then not having those. And then, sometimes you get something that hits and then you get this high and then you're trying to chase that. I mean, to be
right.
honest, Kickstarter is like so much like a drug. I mean, it really is, especially the more you do it. And so, I mean, sometimes things are up and sometimes they're down. My metric is always, does this thing fund itself? I mean, am I making enough money that I'm not losing money? I'm not gonna like endanger my family by doing this.
Right.
And if that's true, then I'm doing okay, and then the wins are sweet. And so I think, it all depends on, is it making enough according to your internal, metrics of like, am I making enough money to be able to make this thing? And
Right.
then
Right.
so, and sometimes it takes a while to get there too. I mean, but um, you know, I think it is really easy to decide to compare yourself, and I mean that's where Curtis has been, because Curtis hit some highs. I mean,
oh, I
Kurt,
mean, not even comparing yourself to other people, but like
Right.
comparing
yeah.
yourself to past campaigns. That's where this
Right.
trouble comes in, man.
Well,
Right.
that's
Um,
because Curtis had that 1,000 backers, and now he's been chasing that dragon ever since.
yeah, man, I'm itching for it.
Yeah.
You think you're on a high right now, Caleb, with this current campaign? Wait until
I
you see
know,
1,000 backers, dude. You're gonna feel
I
great.
know.
Yeesh.
um, But I mean, it's great to hear that you've been able to go back to what we were talking about, the to adapt to a new artist. I think that is that's great, and I think the fact that you've been able to find new people to come onto the book and be excited about it just speaks to the strength of the vision that you have. Because it's pretty clear to me that these people are excited to work on this book. Like it's a cool opportunity, and so. I just think that's really cool. It
Appreciate
speaks
that.
to what you've built.
Thank you.
What have you done to like kind of grow your community and stuff? Yeah, I saw you have a Substack. Are you on? Did you start like a mailing list as well, or are you just on Substack? Like, what are I guess what are you doing to try to get those repeat backers? Maybe what you didn't do the second time. Like, are you working harder for this third campaign with a little more like prep leading in?
Yeah, so so when I did my first campaign, what I did was I got, my first five, got my cover, my first 5 pages, and I just said, if you want to see the preview, sign up for the email list. And so I've done that repeatedly with each book. You know what I'm saying? Where it say, hey,
Hmm.
if you want to see the preview, sign up for the email list. And then before I was using Patreon. On Patreon, I would show like updates on like as we're working on the art, as we're putting things together for the next book. I'm showing that through Patreon and to the paid subscribers and things like that. But that is something that I'm moving more of that to Substack now.
Hmm.
And so I really want to focus on that coming out of this, coming out of issue 3 Kickstarter, is really focusing and being intentional about building that community and communicating with my community in between those Kickstarter campaigns. That's something that I don't think I've done a great job of. Um, but I plan to do a lot better with that coming out of this campaign. So
Yeah, I think there was years ago, Caleb once came to me asking me for advice, believe it or not, and like a mailing list and a newsletter is like the top thing I said, like a consistent one, which I've even lapsed on mine sometimes where I miss a week here or there, but staying as consistent as possible and just like not always selling to them, but just like sharing the cool shit that you're working on and like keeping
right,
the name of Scarlet Ranger and whatever else you have going on like in their heads because they're going to see that popping up and you'll grow this like dedicated audience. And
right,
Substack's cool because people can find you naturally on there, and then plus people can like pay on there too. So it's kind of
right.
like a mix of like Patreon, mail list type thing.
Yeah,
I also think it's, like something, Ro, you said, which is, talking to the people there and getting that engagement, like making it, like really like encouraging that sense of community, I think is a big deal because, when people feel invested, I mean, I think that's core to what Kickstarter is. People feel invested in the project, like, oh, I'm in on the ground floor. I get to read Scarlet Ranger before anybody else gets to read it.
right.
And I'm helping make it happen. And so if you can really hype up that level of engagement when you're doing Substack and stuff like that, of like, like ask for people's input, do surveys or showing off stuff that's coming up. I mean, one thing I love to do that I actually stole from Curtis is, having people vote on a cover. Like the
Hmm.
artist does sketches and then we vote on it
Hmm.
as an audience.
Yeah,
Which
I
I
mean,
think
it
is
just
really cool.
makes them feel like they're more involved, and
Right.
there's no wrong option if you have some good cover layouts that they can vote on, and then
Hmm.
there's more likely if they voted on it, they're more likely. I'd like to think they're more likely to then go buy it on Kickstarter, stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Right.
What else are you
Yeah.
doing, like promotion wise? Is there anything? I mean, it's tough. People ask me this, like especially new creators. So like, how do you get out there and promote it, especially if it's like your first Kickstarter? And like, I don't have a good answer for them many of the times. Like, you can try to do interviews and stuff. You can try to. I mean, social media can feel kind of like useless. Is there anything in specific you're doing to try to get your stuff out there?
Yeah, I just really think I'm not doing anything out of the ordinary. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
I'm hitting my email list, hitting social media. Something that I do, I don't know how many people do this, but I absolutely send like personal messages to people, like
Hmm.
like text messages. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, hey, I just want to let you know this is what we're doing. Um, just because I know, you may not see it on social media, you may not just with the algorithms. So I'm doing that. But I tell people all the time, like when they ask me about Kickstarter, I'm like, the bulk of the work is done before you hit that launch button. And so, if you haven't been telling people about it before you hit the launch button, now you like scrambling, trying to, get here and do this and do these interviews and do this podcast. And so it's just I try to do all those things. If I'm going to be out somewhere, if I'm going to be, giving out flyers or whatever the case may be, I do those things beforehand. And then one thing that helped me, I think, too, was in December. No, was it this past? Maybe November or October. I did a quick starter for it was like a 10-day campaign for a variant cover for issue 2. So I think that helped me sort of bridge like, hey, this is the variant cover for issue 2 and issue 3 is on the way. You know what I'm saying? So I think that helped me a little bit, but I really
That's
don't think
awesome.
I'm doing anything out of the ordinary. I'm just hitting my email list, using social media and, personal messages and just trying to let people know. So,
Yeah, I mean that's as you launch more, it'll get easier pretty much.
I think you're very right about the bulk of the work being done before you hit launch because, a lot of times, and I think probably all of us can relate to this, you get people hitting you up on Kickstarter saying, hey, I just launched this campaign and nobody's backing it. Can you help me get people to it? And I'm like, if you've already launched and it's crickets and you don't have that, you haven't done that work ahead of time, there's really not anything that I can do to help get those people to you. I mean, you're just, like outside of some crazy stroke of luck or somebody very generous, you're not going to get funded. And so, yeah, a lot of that work. But of course, as like Curtis said, as you go, the more of that work you do, the more of it, bleeds into the next campaign and so on. I mean, you're not, when you're promoting, you're not just promoting this one. Every time you promote Scarlet Ranger, you're trying to get new fans.
Right.
When you go to a con, you get someone to sign up for your Substack, and now that person might be following along for years to come.
Right.
It's really like a snowball effect, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah, very much. Would you like to find like a publisher for this, or are you just going to keep it self-published and like have your own self-published line? What are your dreams and aspirations like in the future for Scarlet Ranger or like future series?
Yeah. I don't really know if I want to necessarily have a publisher. I think if I get approached and the deal is right, you know what I'm saying? I think I would be down. I think this story, it being my first one, it being, the thing that I sort of, broke into the game with. I don't know. I think I feel a little protective over it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think, for me, like somebody asked me the other day, do you want to see this become a TV show? Do you want to see this be a movie? I'm like, those things would be cool. But I think what I made it as is what I ideally see it as, a comic book, right? And so I can't wait to have my, collected editions and have it in the hardcover and all the, the scripts in the back and the back matter and all that. I just want to have a cool piece of work that is collected, and it's, it's like an omnibus of the first thing that I created. It's not the last thing I'm going to create, you know what I'm saying? But it's the first thing that I created. And so I just feel proud of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like that's the right mindset to have. Like, I mean, a lot of stuff is out of your control as well when it comes to TV shows and movies. Like, cool to have, but if you get creative control, and even the publisher stuff, I have a couple of my Kickstarter stuff. It's come out with Dark Horse, and like, it was really eye-opening after having that experience where I thought everything was going to change after that. I thought I'd be getting a bunch of writing work, and not much has changed. And Kickstarter is still the focus. Like, that's where I've made the most money. That's where I've grown my audience the most. Like, Kickstarter is the most important thing by far, I think, now.
Yeah. But I mean, the publisher thing can be cool. It's interesting the number of people that I've found my work through the publisher I was with that I'm no longer with. But yeah, I mean, ultimately you make more money, and it's you wrote it to be this. I mean, I like Curtis might have changed his tune, because I remember he used to say, I don't care about comics. I'm just doing this to make it into an anime.
Those are lies. Don't you dare believe him.
No judgment.
No. What do you already have like new series after Scarlet Ranger in the works or planned, or are you just kind of focusing on this?
Yeah, so I have a couple of things in the stash. I have so many ideas for things. Sometimes I'll just outline something and I'm like, look, just put this over here. And I was trying to work on some things. I got some projects started, and I was like, I'm really just trying to do too much right now. Financially, I'm trying to do too much. And let me just finish Scarlet Ranger, right? So I'm going to finish this first arc of Scarlet Ranger. And then I'm going to come back to some of these other projects that I've been, starting and outlining. But I have some The other thing is my main thing isn't superheroes. So all the other ideas that I have aren't superhero stories. So they're like sci-fi.
That's right. I know. Like the
fantasy.
first thing you ever sent me was not superheroes at all.
Right. This
Yeah.
just so happened to be like the first thing that I did, and I finished, and I was like, all right, well, we running with it. So I'm excited to do some of the other things that I have that are fantasy and sci-fi and what I feel is a little different. You know what I'm saying? So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, no, it's a sickness for sure where, as a writer, you're always coming up with new ideas. But
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the comic world, those ideas cost money. I mean, Caleb
For
watched My Neighbor Totoro for the first time the other week, and he just outlined like an 1,000-page thing or something.
Yeah, it did that. That inspired me. I like Ro. I feel the same way as you. I've got just tons of documents and notebooks full of like fully outlined comic book series that I may or may not ever make, but you get an idea, you got to write it down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever run out of ideas. That made me think of that video you sent me, Caleb, where it was like, even if the thing you're creating is similar to something else, like it wasn't made by you. So like, even though Scarlet Ranger could be compared to like Miles Morales or Black Panther or other stuff, and it's like it's created by you, so it's like it has its own uniqueness, and it'll like never be the same.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I had sent Curtis this video. It was an interview by a guy named Brennan Lee Mulligan, who is he's an actor on Dropout, which is like a College Humor, but he does a lot of Dungeons and Dragons stuff.
Okay.
And the interviewer was asking him about, if he ever worries about revisiting genres. And basically he had this metaphor where he's like, people love waffles and they love French toast and they love pancakes. But when people are like, oh man, I want a sweet breakfast food, they're usually not like, what's that fourth fluffy, thing? Why hasn't anybody invented a new fluffy white breakfast sweet? Like they're just like, I really want a good waffle, right? And so like if people love comics, they love superhero comics, they love black characters, they love any of the things that Scarlet Ranger fits into. That's they're like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We're always like, basically the point of his video was like, writers are always trying to completely reinvent the wheel, and like we don't have to do that, because like by creating something, we're making something new and original.
Right.
Even if it's not like we haven't invented a new genre or something.
Right.
And so yeah, I thought that video was very eye-opening for me, because I have felt that pressure of like, what is this thing that I'm doing new and different enough from everything else out there? And it's like, well, if I'm writing a fantasy adventure story, that is exciting to me. I mean, people love fantasy adventure stories, and so like, if this one's good, they'll enjoy this one too. Just like someone going to a diner and ordering a pancake is going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That reminds me of a quote. It's a director who just passed away. I'm blanking on his name right now. But he was saying, he said something to that effect of like, writers are always, obsessing over, has this been said before? And he's like, of course it's been said. Everything's been said, but it hasn't been said by you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Was that David Lynch?
David Lynch. There we go.
Yeah,
There we go. I was thinking David Fincher, but I'm like, it's not Fincher. It's not Fincher, but Lynch. Yes.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good quote.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm gonna do a Beastlands Wild West thing and just
Let's
steal
go.
from Dragon Grit, but it's it's my own. So
Yeah, I'm gonna do Harry Potter meets Digimon next.
that's actually a great
That's
idea,
fine.
dude. If you want to make some money, go for Harry Potter meets Digimon.
Thousand Packers, here we come.
Right on. Well, so this is issue 3, and then and you said it's going to be 4 issues before you collect it. Okay. Have you started thinking about what kind of stuff you're gonna offer on that collected edition? Like how you're gonna run that Kickstarter?
Mean like what rewards I want to do?
Yeah, like
what
paperbacks, hardcovers, anything like that.
Yeah. So I really want to do. I don't know if I'm gonna do this because the way I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I'm gonna do this, but I really want to do 4 versions of a hardcover, and I want to do like a scarlet edition, a white edition, a black edition, and a gold edition. It sounds like a lot when I say it out loud. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna do that, but in my mind that feels like really cool, like having these different colored special edition version, and each one would have a different like one might have the scripts in the back, the other ones might have like I don't know what would be in there, but it would be other stuff in there. So like if you get one, you're not getting the other back matter things.
Right. I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, like that's pretty similar to what we do with our variant covers for our hardcovers and stuff. And then we also have like the special collector's edition, which has like a cloth cover and foil stamped art that Caleb copied me, of course, for that. But it comes out like really fancy and nice. I've never played around with like including more content, but I mean, that's a good idea. It just might get a little tricky with printing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, I don't know about that.
I think it really depends. I mean, one of the biggest questions is, quantity, because if you're printing digitally, especially if you're printing digitally domestically, it's not that big of a deal to have different versions, have different content in them. But if you're trying to print in like large quantities offset, then all of a sudden it gets way more expensive to have different, whereas they can just do a split binding where it just has different covers. And that doesn't cost that much more. Yeah. But if the interiors are different. So I have done editions that I've done 2 different books that had a collector's edition that had additional content in the back.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just, what ended up happening is I just ordered enough of those collector's editions to fill it. And it wasn't my like main print order, and then those were just more expensive to print.
Right.
So yeah, it just kind of depends. Every new kind of more complicated option you offer makes it more expensive.
Yeah, that's like I said. When I said it out loud, I started thinking about all that you just said, and I'm like, I don't know. I would have to really think through that. But the other thing that I want to do is I really would love to do a basketball shoe. So my younger brother he just retired. He played professional basketball. And I've been looking at like basketball shoes and just, that industry. I'm like, it would be really cool to have like a Scarlet Ranger, like custom like basketball shoe.
That's something I haven't seen done before as far as like comics Kickstarters go. I mean, people have done T-shirts. Our friend Andrew's done like badges that you can like wear, like lanyards and stuff. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know like the cost and logistics of that. But
yeah, I've been doing some research. I've been looking into it. If I can pull it off, I'm absolutely going to do that. But I think
we're scared to do T-shirts because of the different sizes. Then you got shoes, you got like wide feet, skinny feet, you got the different sizes. I don't. If you can pull it off, man, I could see a Scarlet Ranger shoe. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be a very cool reward. Yeah. You got a younger brother who retired from professional basketball.
Yeah.
I have no idea how old you are, Ro, but if I was to guess, I would say like 32.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I appreciate that, brother. I'm 37. I'm 37.
Okay. I mean, I guess
he's 32 though. He's 32.
Okay. I guess when you're playing at a professional level, you don't retire like at the age that like normal people retire from normal jobs.
20s is like the prime in pro sports. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he got drafted, I think he was 19 or 20. And then he played like 11 years. So
okay.
Yeah, he's 32, about to be 33. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, a shoe would be cool, but yeah, Curtis and I have talked a lot about different kinds of rewards and stuff, and like what, just like logistically, how can we do certain things? And a shoe feels like something that every single one that gets ordered is going to be a custom job, right? Because they got to order in their size, presumably. I mean, I assume people, maybe they don't want to wear them. I don't know.
You could just do baby shoes. Baby
right,
shoes only.
This collector's item baby shoe.
Yeah, there we go.
To be worn, just put on the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any that don't sell, you just have like a stack of baby shoes behind you now.
Right.
What's your timeline on like getting the next issue and then getting that volume 1 out? It looks like you've been at about like 1 Kickstarter a year. Are you going to try to ramp it up ever and be like Caleb, like at Kickstarter every month, 12 a year, or are you like keeping it slow?
I don't know if I'm going to do that. So this is the first time. The first two issues I did the first 5 pages for money reasons. I did the first 5 pages, did the Kickstarter, and then paid the artist. This is the first time where I've paid. Like I've already paid for the pencils and the ink.
Is issue 3 all done already?
It's not completely. It's about 75% done. We're gonna have the colors wrapped by the end of this month. And so this will be the first time where I'll be able to take the Kickstarter money and just get the next issue rolling. So I was thinking about that today. I would like to do a Kickstarter for issue 4 at the end of maybe October, November, and then do the collected edition, early in 2026. So that's my plan right now. And so, yeah, I do want to ramp it up and get this, this first arc wrapped up and get to that collected edition.
Yeah, no, you're in a good position. The fact that you've already paid for all of issue 3 and it's in the finishing touches now, by the time the Kickstarter ends, that's something I've done a couple times. That's something I'll be doing with the next issue of Beastlands. I already have it all completed. But for financial reasons, there's many times you're not able to do that, which then you have to use the Kickstarter money to finish to make the book, and it just makes everything take longer, and it sucks when you're trying to be on that Caleb schedule of launching. But
yeah.
I mean, yeah, unfortunately, as I'm sure you've experienced, having more of that stuff done ahead of time also means you're more deeply financially invested in the project. And so, I mean, you're running through stuff the way that I am. Sometimes you end up with stuff that's complete. I have one book that's completely finished, 100% wrapped, and I haven't even started promoting the Kickstarter for it yet. Because because the schedule gets packed, and then you're and so you just have to be, it is scary, I think, to do that, because, of course, if you just have a few pages done and then you do the Kickstarter, it's if it totally flops and fails, then you can just kind of cut your losses and get out of there. But if if you already got the whole thing done, you're kind of committed. You're I'm making this book no matter what. Yeah. So, so that can definitely be scary. But I also think that it's kind of the way Kickstarter is moving. I think when we started out, 8 years ago or whatever, it was way more common to do books where it was we just have a few preview pages. It's going to be a while. It's going to be a while before you get your stuff. And so people still do that, but it's way more common to be okay, I'm backing this book on Kickstarter, and in a few months I'm going to get it. Right. And that's more and more what people expect. And I think you can earn backers' loyalty by doing that, but it's harder. It's more stressful. So you, maybe to change gears a little bit, talking about stress, Ro, you got a family, right?
I do.
Yeah, you got kids?
4 of them.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So you got, this isn't just you're not just chilling doing this with your infinite amounts of time, right? Right. So I think that's something that I can really relate to, is that you're a father, you're part of a family, and you're but this is also your passion, and you're trying to juggle all this stuff. So I guess that would be my next question is do you think you're successfully managing kind of work and your passion and family life, and if so, how?
So I'm in a very fortunate position because my wife runs a successful business. She does web design, graphic design, branding agency. And so when in 2018, I was working in a warehouse, overnight in a warehouse. And I realized my whole check was going to daycare. And so I told my wife, I said, why don't I just bring the kids home? I start working at the warehouse and I write full time. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And when I did that, her business got better and, things were running smoothly. And so I've been able to be a stay-at-home dad as well as take care of the kids as well as write. You know what I'm saying? And so my situation is very fortunate right now because I don't necessarily have a day job, if you will. And so as long as the kids are good, as long as, things are taken care of around the crib, I'm writing, I'm creating. You
I
know what
think
I'm
that's me and Caleb's dream right now.
That
That sounds
is
amazing.
that is legitimately my dream. I have
I don't
I
even
got
have kids yet, and I'm ready to be a
yeah.
stay-at-home dad, man. Sign me up.
Well, yeah, I have a step kid, but my wife and I are hoping to have kids, and so that's what I'm working toward. I'm hoping that I can be that stay at home dad. So not in some ways, in like the biggest way, you've made it way more than we have, bro.
Yeah. Still though, I mean, being a stay-at-home dad with 4 kids sounds like a ton of work still. Like how do you balance creativity and like finding time to write and stuff? Like me living alone and doing this full time, I struggle with like the business side and the Kickstarter fulfillment side and running Kickstarters compared to like having time to actually write. Like, and it's something I've definitely gotten better at this year, especially after like our conversation with Ray, where he said like he would wake up and like put a timer on for an hour, and that's where he would do his writing. Like, are you doing your writing at night or in the morning? Like, how does that work for you?
So now, at this point, it's become really, really easy because all the kids are in school now. So, we drop them off at, 8 o'clock, 7:45, 8 o'clock. And so I got from 8 o'clock to, my youngest gets out at 2:30. So 8 o'clock to 2:30, I'm writing, doing all the business stuff, whatever. Before, when they were younger, it was really difficult. And I had to show myself a lot of grace and just say, look, some days I don't get to write. If 2 kids are homesick, I got to do that. I can't really write right now. But one of the things that I tell people, like people ask me the balance question, right? How do you balance everything? And for me, it's not really about balance as much as it's about wherever you are, be there, right? So if I'm doing something with the kids, I'm with the kids. If I'm writing, I'm writing. If I'm washing dishes, I'm washing dishes, right? And so it's like whatever you're doing, whatever I'm trying to do, I'm present in that moment to make sure that I'm giving as much of myself to that moment as I can. And so it's not about necessarily balancing the time. It's just about, doing the best of my ability when I have the time to do what I got to do. You know what I mean? And sometimes I don't get to write. It's like, look, I'll write for 5 minutes. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to get a sentence down. I'm going to get a page down. Like, I'm going to try to do something and I'm going to give my best in that 5 minutes or for that one sentence, or I'm just thinking about it, whatever the case may be. Right. But I just try to show up and be present in whatever moment that I'm in. You know what I mean?
I like that, man. Have you seen that movie Perfect Days?
Perfect Days?
Perfect Days by Wim Wenders. It's like very much the theme of that movie. Weird
Okay.
movie. But yeah, check it out one day.
Word.
But I think what you just said. I think is really powerful because you said wherever you're at, be there. And I oftentimes find myself. I mean, just the other day, I was telling Curtis. Yesterday, I ended up after work. I was running around doing things for my stepkid and my wife, and I ended up like driving for like 4 hours, like running people things all over the place. That's not like a typical day for me, but I found myself during part of that time being like, damn it, I should be writing right now. Like I should be at home working on my business, and instead I'm doing all this stuff for my family. But I mean, like, of course I'm like, I love my family. I'm very grateful for that experience and that that I could be there for them, but it is sometimes hard to be like sometimes not to get frustrated, and so of course but of course like I'm gonna look back and be like, of course I want to know that I treasured the time that I spent with my family, right? So
no, it's a very wise mindset. That's the mindset of a guy who has 4 kids for sure. I like it.
And I'm not perfect at it, but that's the goal. That's where we try to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like it. Do you have any like final thoughts, or like where can people find you, and like when does your Kickstarter end?
Yeah, definitely check out the Kickstarter. It ends. I think we have 16 more days left, so it ends April 6th, I believe.
Yeah,
So
and you're already
definitely,
funded, right?
we're already funded. We're
But you didn't hit that internal goal yet, I'm sure, right?
yeah.
You
I'm
got
I'm
the
trying to get to
aspirations.
that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to 5,000. If we get to $5,000, I'm gonna do a creator's commentary for the first 3 issues of Scarlet Ranger. So I'm gonna, go through and just, talk about behind the scenes choices we made with different panels, different pages, and just talk about, the process for creating, these first 3 issues. So that's my main stretch goal right now. And so, yeah, definitely check out the Kickstarter. You can find me at rolamb.com, ROLAMB. And I also want to say, Caleb and Curtis, thank y'all so much for having me on. I appreciate y'all. I look up to y'all. I admire y'all, and I just appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much.
Yeah,
of course, man. Thank you, Ro.